during the early years of Power of the Force 2, modern Star Wars collecting, one of my absolute favorite SKUs were the cinema scenes. It was like getting a whole wave at once. Yeah, only 3 figures instead of, maybe 4 or 5 or 6, but they were themed and specific, and they tended to be figures that really didn't work for carded releases, at least at the time. Total sense with the Jedi Spirits, Anakin, Yoda, and Obi-Wan, an Anakin action figure from the classic trilogy. Well, we'll get into that. So we had spirit figures before, or spirit, with a singular T, in the Obi-Wan Kenobi figure that was both a promotion with Fruit Loops and, Frito-Lay. Wait, Han was Fruit Loops. Yes, he was Frito-Lay. And then later on, for the special edition, there was a second run done with a different package, but it was the exact same figure. The figure was a little bit of a modification from the carded release in the sense that it was the same stature and the robes folded the same way, especially around the legs. They just had no articulation. Now, a lot of people would have loved a single carded release of this figure, and while that wasn't to be for quite a while, since after all, Spirit of Obi-Wan has significant screen time, as opposed to Anakin and Yoda, who have a blink and you miss them screen time as ghosts in the original trilogy. But yeah, of course they're there. It's one of the final shots of the entire original trilogy with them on the Endor Ewok. Well, not Endor Ewok, the Ewok village. They appear and they wave to Luke and are like, "Good job, man! You saved the galaxy." Now, this particular cinema scene was released as part of the flashback series. It didn't contain the flashback card that some of the single-carded releases did. Well, only the single-carded releases did. But it was a way to release figures that were tied into the upcoming Episode 1, which was now in pre-production at this point in the line. So all of the characters had either counterparts appearing in the movie, or they themselves, like Yoda, actually did appear in Episode 1. Luke obviously didn't. Luke was kind of represented by Anakin. And while we would get a flashback Anakin figure complete with the flashback photo pull card mechanism, well, it made sense to have Anakin out there, because while he wasn't the Anakin we've come to know from Clone Wars and Episode 3 and, all that other stuff, back then Anakin was just a ghost that showed up at the very end of the movie. And since he's so tied in to Episode 1, doing some Anakin, sort of your token Anakin, the only Anakin they had access to, the only one with screen time at that point, was Sebastian Shaw as Darth Vader, as Anakin Skywalker, and Yoda and Obi-Wan show up next to him, and again, they're all based on sort of existing sculpts. Well, sort of. Obi-Wan obviously based on that, and then Yoda, but this one is the real gem, and honestly one of my favorite figures in the entire line, even though it is literally a statue. There's no articulation. So if you're a modern Star Wars fan, you may not even know that back before the special editions and before, Hayden Christensen was the ghost of Anakin, it was played by Sebastian Shaw. He was Anakin, that was. And he hadn't been replaced in the film by Hayden Christensen. Now, we've had multiple old Anakin action figures as portrayed by Sebastian Shaw, who also portrayed Vader without his helmet. The first one being this figure from the very tail end of Power of the Force 1, also one of my favorite toys as a kid. I got it as the mail-away, even though it did come out later on card, and this was one of the final mail-away figures I got. It really represented what else was out there. It was sort of this gateway to an imaginative Star Wars world. Now, I always saw this as Anakin as just kind of a person. I didn't actually think of the action figure as representing a ghost, but I think if you look at the card art, that's what was intended, because you can see, there's little ghosty swirls around him, unless that's like midichlorians in the Force, but they hadn't been invented yet. Now, in an upcoming wave, we were going to get a single-carded human Anakin, clearly not a ghost, and this is the figure that the ghost is based on. They share the same tool. They were probably developed at the same time, and they just ran the articulated one and then ran the ghost one, or maybe the opposite way. So putting Anakin Ghost together with Obi-Wan and Yoda creates that, triumvirate, triad, trilogy, what's a three thing? I don't know. People aren't a trilogy. Getting other older Anakin figures was a real treat, and something that didn't happen that often. So also one of my favorite toys was this 13-inch, yes, 13, not 12, I don't know why, figure with cloth goods that came with the story of Anakin Skywalker, also put out as kind of hype pre-episode 1. Love this toy to pieces. And there's just, something about Sebastian Shaw as Anakin Skywalker that is so much about my childhood. And seeing that image erased from the movie really hurt because, yeah, Hayden Christensen, awesome, young Anakin, but old Anakin is, he should be old. Like, I don't know. Since the replacement, all merchandise has been Hayden Christensen, more or less. It's basically now that is the official canon. So even when we had a single-carded Anakin Skywalker Spirit figure in the 30th anniversary of the original release, we still got a Hayden Christensen head. I would have loved for them to have thrown in a Sebastian Shaw as an alternate head, but I thought maybe they did that for Comic-Con or something, but they didn't. And it's one of the only Hayden Christensen figures I permit in my collection, I suppose. So Obi-Wan on a single card, well, we did get that. We haven't had a vintage collection version, or anything retro like that, but we did get a version of Obi-Wan. We actually never got this version non-Spirit. That tool never got reused. I was waiting for it to show up in the non-Spirit deco, so it's kind of cool. And in the 6-inch line, we've had both Obi-Wan and Yoda, but no Anakin. Whether in the 6-inch line we get Anakin, and if that Anakin will have a Hayden, well, he'll definitely have a Hayden head, but will he also have a Sebastian Shaw head? Man, I hope that would just be awesome. But I kind of think that we have to let that one go. But at least we got a few toys before things changed. And having Sebastian Shaw as Anakin Skywalker with the only Ghost Yoda figure we've ever gotten. Can you believe that? We've never gotten another Hasbro 3 3/4 Ghost Yoda. Obi-Wan, we've had the carded one and the Frito-Lay one, but Anakin's special. This will really be a special set for me because of that, because you're just not going to get this figure anymore. And it's cool to know that part of Star Wars history, my childhood, lives on.